Welcome everybody once again. This is Mr. Ndabezita and we are in our second tutorial. So in the first tutorial, let me just take you through this. What we did, we just created a class which we called a person. We have a method or a function that accepts no argument, where self would reference to the object instance, and then when you invoke this method, just prints out the name and the age of the individual. And this was the printout that we had in there. Okay, let me just do this. And remember, the object persons.name is Samuel, so it will reference to that. And then persons.age is 45, and then it will print this method when you invoke this method, which is found inside of a class. And we allowed ourselves to do some mistakes so that we can correct these mistakes and see why they are the way in which they are. So what we are going to do in here is to have a new file, and we are going to call this self in Python. So what does self really mean in Python? So self in Python, this is exactly what we will be looking at. Okay, let me just correct this mistake. Is there any rename in here? Let me just quickly check. Okay, let me have a new Python file. Let's say a new Python file, and let's say self in Python. Very important. And let's just try to delete this one. Just delete this one. So this is a new Python file that we have. And what is it that we want to do in here? First of all, in here I want to have a class, and I'm going to call this class a rectangle. Very important. And this class will have some properties, and it will return some few things. So what I'm going to do there, I'm going to have a method which I will call calculate area, and it will be a method that accepts no argument, but remember, self will reference to the object instance. And then secondly, what I'm going to do there, I'm going to have some access properties. So let me just comment that and say access properties. Very, very important. And then I don't want to go there. Where I want to go, I want to indent this and say, okay, I want this to return, it will return self dot height. So I will declare or I will have height in my object. Let's use that one, because we are going to use objects in order to pass this height in there. So it will return self dot height, and then I'm going to multiply this with the width. So I'm going to say self dot width. Very, very important that we understand that. Highly important. And then I want to have another method in here which I will call print data. It will also accept no argument. Self will reference to the object, and when this method is called, I just want to have a printout that says the width, and then it will provide me with the width. Very good. And then secondly, I will have my print and I will say height, and then it will provide me with this height. So what I will do there, okay, I'm having some problem in here. Let me use a comma in here. Let me just use a comma in there. Sorry, let me see everything. Is it fine? Of course, everything is good. So in here, let me just so let me just have my height, and then I will just have the self dot height in there. So these are the printouts that I will have when you invoke this method. And do we have any problem in here? Of course, everything is fine. Now, how do I access these methods? So let me access these class functions in here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to comment this and just say access the class function. Very good. And then what I'm going to do there, I'm going to say that the area, my area is equals to self, my area is equals to self dot, and then when I'm here, when I try to say calculate height, it doesn't appear because of my indentation. So if I say area is equals to self dot, then now it appears. So indentation, it's so important, guys. We need to indent exactly at the very same. I want to show you something here. You see where this area is equals to self dot area, and let's see where do we have this calculate area. There it is, and it is in the same indentation as this area that I have there. Highly important that we take note of these very small things. So I'm declaring a variable area where I will save whatever that I have in here will be saved inside there. And then I can just have a print, and I can just say the area is equal, and I can have some space and use my comma, and I can have the area there. But remember what area is. Area is not a method, it's just a variable that stores the calculate area that is stored inside here. So what am I doing here? I'm taking the function name, there it is, and I'm storing it inside of a variable so that it will be able to bring that out for me. So this is something worthy of noting. So one thing that I'm going to do in here is now create an instance of a rectangle. So I'm going to say a rectangle, it's equals to a rectangle. Now remember, a constructor that accepts no argument. Therefore, I'm going to say a rectangle dot, and I'm going to say the width. I'm going to assign it a value of 3, and rectangle dot height, remember case sensitive, and I'm going to assign it a value of 2, and I'm going to say rectangle dot, now I want to print data method. Now let's try to go through this because maybe it may be a little bit more confusing. Now remember, I want you to check something in here. Now what I did first, let's just go up. I declare a class which I call a rectangle. This rectangle has a method or a function which I call calculate area, and self, remember, it will reference to the object instance. And then I am having some access properties in here. So this calculate area, what will it do? It will return, so it has a return type. It will return self. It will go inside of your instance, take that height, multiply that by the width, and it will return that. Very important. And then I'm defining another method which is called print data, which will reference to the object instance, because these are methods that accepts no argument, but there should be at least one. So what does self do? Self is not a keyword in here. It's simply the name of the first parameter of a class function. It have some other name, you can use some other name for this, but the naming convention suggests using the self word there. So in here, print data, what it will do, it will say the first print out will tell you the value of the width that you have set and the value of the height, and then it will access a class function. We are trying to access a class function. Which class function? Calculate area. And I am accessing calculate area, and I'm storing that inside of a variable which I call area. And then what will area bring out? It will bring out the calculation in here. But because it's an area, I think I should have a comma here and just say units squared, because it's an area there. So this is the printout that I can have. So this is highly important. You can in Python take a method and store it inside of a variable, and then be able to print out the data that you want to have in there. So this is one thing possible that we can do. Let's try to run this and see if things will happen the way in which we want. So we are having a problem. It is still in here. It is still printing this that is in there. So let's just try to close this and run this for the second time. Okay, Control F5. Stop and rerun. It's still printing out this. Okay, let us just try to see how we can do this. One way of doing this is to let me just delete this class. Let me just delete the main and just try to run this, and we are having a problem, and it says error 2, no such file or directory is found. So desktop python 2 main.py. So why is it doing that? Okay, let's go to the project, and we have called this. So let me just see the structure fields. Okay, that is fine. Let me try to run it once again, and then it is still trying to access main.py. It is still trying to do that. So what we can do, okay, this is fine. Let's just cut all this. Let's just come here and say new project, and this is fine. We can just create this. Let's just wait for it to create, and then when it's done in just a couple of minutes, we will be able to run this. So it's still creating some a virtual environment. I'm very sure that it will be done in a couple of seconds. And now that it is done, let me just close this, and then let me just get rid of all this. So let me just paste. Now this is all the information that we have in here. So this is the information that we are having. And then when we are here, what we could have done, we could have allowed the rectangle to inherit from the main so that we can have access to all this, but never mind, we didn't do that. This is what we just have. And then let us try to run this and see what we can get. So it prints out for us, first of all, the width that you have set. Let me show you. The width is a 3 and the height is 2, and the product of the width and the height is a 6 units squared, because this was the area that we calculated. And what we can do there, we can even find a method for calculating the perimeter of a rectangle. So for example, we can just come here and we can define another method, which we can say calculate the perimeter, which will accept no arguments, and then self will reference to the object instance. And then in here, what I can do, I can just say return, and I can say 2 times height plus 2 times the width. This is what I can do. And then I can access the call function by saying, okay, let me just come just on top here and say perimeter is equals to self dot, you see, calculate perimeter. And what I can do there, I can copy this and paste, very good. And instead of saying the area, I can say perimeter equals, and I can come here and say perimeter, and it will be able to print out whatever that needs to be printed out for me. But we are having some problem in here. Let me show you something. When I'm here, it says to me now create a parameter height. No, I don't want to do that. So I want to take the very same height. Let me check if the spelling is fine. The very same height and the very same width. So I am multiplying the 2 in there. So we are having a problem there. Unresolved reference. Create parameter height. No, I don't want to do that. And if we try to, sorry, let me get rid of this. But we are still having some problems in there. I'm saying return height and width. What is it that I did not include in here? I did not include self. So very, very important that I should have self there. So I should say self dot, and when I press the dot there, I should have my height, the height and then you multiply that height by 2 plus in here you will have your plus, and you will say self dot, and you are having your width there, and then the width you also multiply by 2. Very, very important that we see this. So remember, self must reference to the object instance with a width and a height there. So you cannot have a number first. You must say self.height, but I'm taking that height multiplied by 2 plus self.width. I'm taking that width and multiplying that by 2 in order to have the perimeter of a rectangle, because we have two sides which are height and they are of the same value, and then you are having your width 2 times the value of the width. So I can have this as not square units but as just the units. So you can just say your perimeter is that a certain unit, and we can try to run this, and it is the area is 6 units squared and the perimeter is 10 units. Very, very important that we see that. So it will print out first the, when you say rectangle dot print data, and I want you to see something in here. When I say rectangle dot print data, that's where I have the perimeter. So it will invoke this and invoke that, because these two methods or functions, they are both in here in your print data. So when you call the print data, it will print out the perimeter, and it will also print out the calculate area. And these are the printouts that we have. Very, very important that we do this. Or maybe somebody might want to come and just say, okay, once I have had this perimeter as a printout, or the area, as you can see, first it prints out the area, and then secondly it prints out the perimeter there. You can, for example, try to differentiate between the two by just maybe having a print, and in our print we can just try to separate the area and the perimeter with some few dashes in there, so that you have the area as that and the perimeter as this. And there are many ways of printing out this perimeter. You can maybe say the perimeter of this height and that width equals this, and the area of this height and this width equals that. So there are many ways in which we can do this, but this is just the fundamental way of doing things. So when we invoke the print data, first of all it will tell you the width and the height, and then it goes on to take the function, store it inside of perimeter, and take in the calculate area function, store that inside of the area variable, and then you would access them in this way. Highly and highly important that we understand that. So this is our second tutorial, trying to deal with classes and methods and everything that has to do with that. So guys, I think I will see you in the next tutorial.